All right, guys, today we're going to be doing an option for the Chevrolet Cruze, this GM kit 959-80690, which is a body side molding kit. Something that this particular car never got when it was new, and managed to pick this up for a good price on eBay. And so we're going to put it on today, and I'm going to show you how it goes. So this guy will come all wrapped up like this, and we're going to have to unpackage it. Rather than have you guys just watch me unpackage this, I'm going to pause for a second while I get this all taken apart, and we'll come back. All right, several places is tape, so I guess I'll just go ahead and go through this. Just be careful as you cut this guy open. Come up along the edge. Now this is a dealer installed option. It wouldn't usually be something that you could install yourself, but it's easy enough to do yourself. So inside, after you get this thing off the bubble wrap, we can see the instructions are right here. And I'm suspecting with these kind of options, the instructions are kind of a universal pictorial type. Yep, they are. And so, you're not going to have a lot of wording or language on this. It's just going to be mostly pictures and icons to show you. So what it's telling you here is you should have 4 pieces, 2 for the rear doors on each side and 2 for the front doors on each side. It's telling you that you'll need something to clean the outside with, a heat gun if it's cold out. They're showing a pencil here and a tape measure to mark things, and then gloves so you don't touch where this is going to be, the adhesive is going to be, and cause any of your skin oils to mess it up from sticking well. And they're just showing you the general area where this is going to be installed. And then they're showing you the specific measurements on each door where this would go before you place it. And then here they're indicating that if the temperature is under 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius, they're suggesting that you raise the temperature with a heat gun up above this point so that the adhesive is going to stick when you get ready to do it. And then they do the same thing with the measurements for the rear door. If we go to the last page, they're then talking about how you can peel back the tape on the adhesive, what the finished look is, and then they're suggesting here that you don't drive over any bumpy terrain for 12 hours, no car washes for 48 hours, and then for 24 hours, don't drive 60 miles per hour or higher, 100 kilometers per hour or higher. So pretty straightforward. If we take a look at the individual pieces, we can see that the rear door pieces are in their own kind of little envelope here. I'm going to kind of cut these open so we can get them out. Right, and so you can see out of the box, it's a nice gloss black finish. A little bit of excess flash that stuck to the tape there. That's nothing to be worried about. And then you can see how the tape is. So it's kind of like hollow in the middle with outside pieces and ends being what actually gets adhered to the paint, at least for these outside pieces. And then if we take a look at the fronts, I expect to see something similar. Pop this guy open. Same thing. Got tape on the very outer edge and on the corner pieces. The outer edge pieces on the ends, and they have this piece here. So let's go ahead. I've already cleaned these off, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make the measurements that were discussed in the instructions. So I'm just going to go back to this. I'm going to make the instruction measurements starting at step 2 here. I'm going to do the fronts as they suggest first, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the front edge of the door over to this point, 25 millimeters, and then I'm going to make a mark 5 millimeters from the bottom edge of the door. And then this is very important to note, then they tell you that at the end of the front door, right, so this is the beginning, so they don't tell you the measurement here because they're going to tell you the measurement at the back. Then at the back of the door, you're going to come 2.3 millimeters off the back trailing edge of the door, and then you're going to raise it 9.5 millimeters. So this thing has a slight angle to it. You can see that even in the drawing where there's less space at the front and more space at the rear. And again, if we take a look at the drawing, they're showing up above. There's a little bit of a swish effect they're trying to have you do there. Then I'm going to go ahead and proceed to make the marks and measurements on the rear door. Here we're coming 3 millimeters from the front edge of the rear door and 9 millimeters from the bottom edge. And then in the trailing side, we're staying 9 millimeters. So in this case on the rear, it's perfectly level. 9 millimeters in the front, 9 millimeters in the back. No indication of what you have to worry about here because they're just trying to have you measure it off the front trailing edge, 3 millimeters. I'm going to use some painter's tape to indicate these marks. So I'm going to go do all those measurements and then we'll come back. All right, so just to show you where things are at, guys, I'm just showing you on the back here. I'm using these little pieces of tape so I can come in. I can see my 9 millimeter here. I've got my 9 millimeter position here. I've also got this offset 3 millimeters from the front. I've taken the scissors and I've trimmed off some of the excess mount tape from the adhesive. And I'm just going to kind of come over here and do a test fit. Just kind of line up how it's going to look. And then what I'm going to end up doing after using the tape to line this up is I'm going to end up putting something underneath here when I'm sure it looks okay. And then I'll remove those 2 pieces of tape. So I'm going to go do the same thing for the front now. All right, guys, so I'm going to come in here right before we mount this. I'm going to put some alcohol. We're going to do one last attempt to make sure we haven't left any fingerprints or oils or anything that's going to interfere with the adhesive. And then I'm going to use these 2 pieces of tape that I already have on here as a guide for putting another piece on each end to tell me exactly where the bottom of this needs to go. So these are my 2 in the rear here for my 9 millimeter positions. And I'm just going to come up here and kind of eyeball this roughly for now, because I'm only interested in the bottom at the moment. And then I'm going to come, as soon as I'm sure, if you come down here, you can see at this angle down here. Right, I'm just coming straight down to where we had that tape. And then I'm going to just stick another piece. If I can get it into position, I'm going to stick another piece right along the bottom here. All right, so the first piece was just a convenient way to measure from the bottom to the height, and then we put the piece on, and now we can get a piece that sits right along the bottom, and then we can take this piece off. I'm going to do the same thing in the front, and then we'll offset it the 3 millimeters from the back, and then we'll pull the adhesive off, the tape off, and we'll put it on. All right, guys, let's get this first piece on, or this back piece on, rather. I'm going to go ahead and take the tape covering the adhesive in the back off first. If I can get a grab on it. That's a good thing, though. It's super, super adhesive. So I've got that. And then I'm going to take the strips off the sides. The red strips, rather. There's 1, and then 2. All right, and then this thing is pretty flexible. And so what I recommend doing is coming up in the front first and positioning it along where you want it on the bottom and the front. So we've got our 9 millimeters up from the base and our 3 millimeters in. And then we're just going to kind of push down in that one place. Don't let it push down anywhere else until you've had a chance to line it up in the back. And then if you're sure you've got it where you want it to be there, then just run your finger along the bottom and then come back along the top right to here. Then before you finish it up, just keep it peeled up a little bit. Take the last piece of tape off here. And then just finish it off. And there we go. We got the back door done. We're ready to do the other side. All right, so guys, as we get ready to do the front here, you know, a couple of things to take note of. Always remember that the curve on this piece for each side is going to be towards the front, and you're going to get the swish going downward. So the downward part of the swish lets you know it's on this side. Obviously, the other one with the swish in the other direction will be for the passenger side. And the other thing is to take note of, again, these measurements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the ones in the back here first, the 9.5. So I'm going to come up 9.5 from the bottom, and then we're going to come in 2.3 from the back. We're going to put our tape, and then we're going to come to the front, and we're going to mark it 5 millimeters, 25 millimeters from the door. So it's kind of like, right, you're going to come from here, and then you're going to put a 5 here. So this whole thing's going to slope a little bit to have it blend into the one on the rear. So let me go ahead and get the tape in position and show you those measurements. All right, guys, so you can see we've got the tape showing where we're at in the back, where we're trying to set it back 2.3 millimeters. I'm using this tape on the top, just put it into place so that I could step back from the vehicle and make sure it looks like it's lining up with the rear, and it's all looking not crooked. And then, here I can push against this guy. I can verify, for example, that I've got my 9.5 coming up from the bottom of the door. In the front, we're coming up 5. This piece in the front is showing us setting it back 25 millimeters, like we were talking about before we start taking a look at making the measurement on the 5. So the fact that it's 5 in the front and 9.5 in the back, you've got a little bit of a slope upwards, and then you want to make sure that that's going to feed into the back. And you see I did the back first before I did the front, just because I wanted to avoid these guys not lining up and get a chance to see them. The back one's actually much easier to do than the front, because both of the measurements, as you saw before, were the same. In the front, they're not. They're sloping. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and just do a couple more checks, and then we'll come back and I'll show applying it. Okay, so we're ready to do this. So with this in position and being able to do the alignment with the pieces of tape here, again, the 2.3 millimeter offset and the 9.5, I'm also able to then go down and position a couple other pieces of tape along the bottom for the slope, just to make sure it's lined up. And the way I do this, I put these little hinges on a long piece like this. The back is a little easier because it's shorter, but on a long piece like this, I'll do these little hinges, and then I'll come in here and I'll take the tape off for the back piece, and I'll take these strips off. It's actually the hardest thing is to get your fingernail underneath these little strips of tape. Might have to go get a little X-Acto knife or something just to get a grip on these. There's that one. Okay, so when you get these off, you can just pull them down part way. So there's this guy. And if I can just get this one off, you'll see what I'm doing here. Some of you probably already figured it out. Get this one off. There we go, a little piece that came off. All right, so now what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to come over here. I'll be able to fold this guy into position where we want him to stick, just here on the back. And then I'll be able to slowly pull these long strips out. And then each time I get to one of these ones I measured, now sometimes this will happen. This little piece busted off, so now I'm going to have to kind of come under here and peel it off again. But I'm going to end up doing that same technique where I'm going to try to bring these back here to here, and then here to here, and then there to there, and then we'll come back when I get it to the end. All right, guys, what happened here was you can see there's a little gap in the manufacturing of this tape. And I, unfortunately, did not detect this when we started it. So I'm just twisting this down a little bit. I'm using an X-Acto knife so I can get the second piece of tape started, and we can continue doing what we were planning to do, like that. Just pull this out enough to run it underneath. All right, and then we're back in business. So like I said, we'll just keep going down, pulling this out and lining it up as we go and pressing it into position. So I'm going to get about halfway and we'll come back. All right, so we're coming down past the halfway point. Just going to continue to pull this forward, stop at our intermediate point, press, making sure that we're getting good adhesion. And then we're going to continue running this straight up to the front. Come here like this, and then right before you finish, kind of give it a pull up, and then you're going to want to get off this last piece of tape right on the end piece before you let it stick into position. And with that in the position, just pay attention to that bottom piece of tape that you had for your slope, and then push it on. At this point, we can pull all of our strips off because we're where we need to be now. And then what I like to do is, after I run my finger across it, I like to go get a small mallet, not a hammer. You want to have like a rubber mallet. And you want to come up here and just go along, tapping this into position, especially on a long piece like this. And then I actually then come across it and I just roll the rubber on it. Again, we're just trying to get this to make sure we have no air bubbles and we've got really great adhesion. So I'm going to continue doing this and we'll come back. All right, guys, here's the finished product. As you can see, it looks pretty sporty. It's a nice metallic type of black paint. It's not just a flat black paint. It's glossy, but there's also a metallic content to it. And it's a really good option to this 2012 Cruze, as any first-generation Cruze would take this same option. I'll leave some more details in the video description. If you have any questions about applying this or what it might fit, go ahead and leave me a question in the comments, and I'll try to help you out. Otherwise, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.